Alright, this right here, this is called a galacticmilk.com/sketchpad, and that is pretty much exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. It is a sketch pad, which, you know, can be used just for doodling on your own time for fun, or it can also be used as a really effective way to make some visual representations, create some visual cues that the students could potentially, you know, remember easily for a test or for a standardized exam, or, you know, store it easily in their long-term memory. And it's pretty easy to run. You can choose shapes. And then just kind of, you can make some dots around here, and then you can just go over here to change the color. Now I've made a green one. And then you can over here's the brightness. So if you want like a lighter green, it's right here. And then you could almost do a greenish kind of blue if you want to, or a lot of different options we're going to go with there. So what I'm going to do with this app is I am going to use it to try to create a simple but yet visually effective way to explain the three-fifths compromise. So without further ado, here we go. All right. So after the Great Compromise, we ended up with, as you have learned from the previous video and in previous learnings, that the Great Compromise was the alignment between the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan that gave us our bicameral legislature, or both the House of Representatives and the Senate. The Senate was represented by equal representation despite population, meaning each state got 2 representatives, no matter how big or small it was. And the House of Representation was, or the House of Representatives was, it was the amount of representatives each state got was calculated according to the population. So the issue then came up: how do we count the population, or who counts as part of the population? And then a key deciding factor in that was, how do we count slaves? Because obviously slavery was still around at the time of the Constitutional Convention, and it would be for another 80 years. So the issue came up: should they count? Should they not count? And then this had some serious repercussions as far as like which states would have power. Because if they completely counted, then all the slave states would have power, which meant that they could influence legislature that would keep the slaves as slaves, or, you know, they could have, or really just about whatever they wanted. And then the free states, if they didn't count, then also the free states, or the free states would have maybe a lot more power than the slave states, and the free states could basically just kind of do whatever they wanted. So this quickly became a huge issue and then the solution they came up with wasn't exactly one of the most righteous moments in American history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 10 shapes that represent the free states. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to draw 12 that represent the slave states. But 5 of them are going to be in a different color in order to represent the amount of slaves in that population. 6, 7, and let's make the slaves pink. So again, on the left we have the free states. On the right we have the slave states. Without the slaves, as you can see, the free states they would have a slightly sizably more they would have slightly more representation, which meant that they could have a lot more influence on laws. However, if the slaves completely counted, then suddenly the slave states would have more power, and this obviously would be bad for the slaves, actually, which is one of the more confusing parts of the Three-Fifths Compromise, because it's actually the slave states that wanted them to count as people, and the free states that didn't, because this was more about, I guess, states' rights, or more about trying to gain power. So what actually happened was they came up with the Three-Fifths Compromise, which was obviously a really demeaning thing to the slaves, so that they wouldn't even be considered a full person, and not one of the greater moments of our founding fathers. But what it did do is it gave a equal balance between the free states and the slave states. So the slave states couldn't completely make legislature to further their status, and potentially make legislature that would farther prevent the slaves from becoming free. But at the same time, the free slaves couldn't exactly boss around the slave states either. So while it wasn't really, in hindsight, it wasn't really, it was, kind of a dark thing that that slaves didn't even get full recognition as a person. The idea behind it, I guess, was just to keep the power even. And I guess again, the tricky thing was that it's actually the free slaves that didn't want them to count, because I guess they were trying to make sure that the slave states didn't take complete control. So again, as you can see, once the Three-Fifths Compromise is implemented, then the representation is the more equal, even though the slave states did have, I guess, slightly more representation than maybe they should have, because without the slaves completely, then they would have only had 7, but it was enough to where they could still keep some of the rights, but also not completely boss around the free states, despite there not quite being as much people. So I don't think either side really was in the complete wrong. With, I guess, their thinking behind it, but I guess the result again wasn't one of the best moments in American history. And I think that's